Welcome to On the Water and in the Field, Cornell Cooperative Extension of Suffolk County's news magazine show. I'm your host, Kim Barber. On today's show, we will check in with the local paddle sport community and see how they are helping us give back to the bays. Then we'll go out to Pikes Beach to learn about the Horseshoe Crab Monitoring Network and how citizen scientists are making a difference in the conservation of this species. Next, we're talking aquaculture, and we'll speak with our resident aquaculture experts and those who are growing shellfish commercially and for fun with our SPAT program. After that, we're out on the Sound with our fisheries program, learning about the derelict lobster gear removal project. And finally, we'll head to the Shinnecock Indian Nation to check out the impressive coastal habitat restoration project we've teamed up with them to carry out. In our first story, we will meet some members of the paddle sport community and learn about the Back to the Bay stewardship projects we're working with them on.
The local paddling community knows firsthand how important clean water is to the health of the marine environment and to the recreational value of our bays. In efforts to improve water quality, restore coastal and marine habitat, and enhance shellfish populations, proceeds from two prominent paddling events this year will be directed to Cornell Cooperative Extension's Back to the Bays initiative. Funds generated will enable several stewardship sites to be established in our waters and on our beaches, and create involvement opportunities for the public to help with CCE's science-based restoration work.
Well, it's really gratifying to be able to get out on the water on your paddleboard or your kayak or even on your boat and enjoy the beautiful Peconic Bay estuary. Growing up on the waters of Eastern Long Island, I developed a deep connection with our waters at a very young age and have spent 50 years on the waters fishing and paddling and sailing and really just enjoying all of the wonderful resources that we have here on Eastern Long Island. Unfortunately, I also witnessed a lot of deterioration of our natural resources. We saw the shellfish populations dwindle, we saw the eelgrass start to dwindle, we saw the lobster populations start to dwindle, and it was a real wake-up call to me that as a community, we needed to start to take action and be proactive to start to protect our local environment. And that's where, as a community, we got together to start to do some fundraising and start to work with local non-for-profit organizations to start to give back to the bays.
We couldn't think of a better connection in saving the waters than trying to hook up with Cornell. So we started this race called the Great Peconic Race. We started this whole race for my little brother because we grew up surfing, paddling, clamming, bonfires on the beach. We lived in the water all day and all night. I can't think of a better way to honor my little brother than trying to save these waters that we have.
It's been great to be able to use my love of our local waters and paddle sports as a platform to do fundraising for the environment. And the Race for the Bays, which is held each spring in early May, is a great example of a wonderful event that raises money and awareness, and this year with the Back to the Bays program, hands-on participation by members of the paddle sport community where we were weaving eelgrass. We had an opportunity to meet up with the Shell Star barge and do some scallop seeding in Northwest Harbor. So it was a great opportunity to bring the paddle sport community into the restoration and habitat rebuilding process. And to be able to help Cornell fund these projects is really gratifying.
We just need more people to do it. If we can get more people to enter Havens Beach, Long Beach, Northeast Harbor, every time they hit that sand, to make sure people understand that you are a guardian of this bay.
The East Hampton Town trustees are responsible for managing all of the waters, all of the bottomland, and the beaches here in the town of East Hampton. So it's very inspirational to be connected to our local environment and our local waters. And I look forward to continuing to do good work with the folks from Cornell and the town of East Hampton, and to see more community, government, and non-for-profit partnerships taking place in the future and helping to get more good work done.
Thanks, Rick and Billy. We're inspired by your commitment to stewardship and have enjoyed getting to work with you and the entire paddling community. Speaking of communities making a difference, we'll now head out to see how our citizen scientists are working with scientific professionals and regulatory agencies to help protect horseshoe crab populations.
Let's gather around so that we can get organized. We've got a lot to get done tonight. We're going to try to get out 800 tags, which is quite a feat, but I know we all can do it if we get organized.
Pikes Beach was one of the first sites we chose. It had a very high spawning density of horseshoe crabs. Actually, it's one of the highest spawning densities in New York State, next to Jamaica Bay.
Cornell Cooperative Extension's involvement in the New York State Horseshoe Crab Monitoring Network began over a decade ago. Our resident expert, Dr. Matt Sclofani, and his staff work closely with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation to conduct monitoring activities at numerous sites throughout Long Island. They recruit and retain an impressive number of volunteer citizen scientists who collect data and tag horseshoe crabs in efforts to help management and conservation of this species. Gina and Mark Capiello have served as site coordinators here for many years. The ambitious number of tags they are planning on putting out this evening is a testament to the commitment of these citizen scientists. These monitoring events attract a wide variety of participants of various ages and backgrounds. Among the individuals volunteering their time tonight is notable conservationist, professor, and author Dr. Carl Safina. We spoke with him about the need to understand the significance and value local species like horseshoe crabs hold.
Pretty much everywhere in the world, what I see is that where people don't realize how special what they have is. And people don't think that what they have is special because they just think, well, it's here, it must be a common thing.
Yeah.
And where people think that, it usually precedes the decline of whatever it is, because everything is under so much pressure. And one of the hardest things often to do for people and with people is to show them that something that's right in their own backyard is actually a very special thing.
When I first got into this about 10 years ago, first guy that I met was Chris Smith, and he was running the cooperative extension out here, and he's such a great guy, and he reached out to me, and he said something to me that has always sort of stuck with me, and it's if you know something about something, you care about it. And I think that that's what I've seen here is, I have probably 75, 80 volunteers that come out. It's this eclectic group of people that come out because they care about it. And I think that's the citizen scientists, and they get the word out and they bring their friends.
Data collected from the site over the years made it possible for Dr. Matt Sclofani to put out a report recently, which featured several interesting findings. Radio telemetry conducted as part of this study concluded that horseshoe crabs return to the same spawning sites each year, and given the fact that horseshoe crabs have limited access to sandy beaches, they end up being herded into a few specific spots. With much of Moriches Bay being affected by development and hardened shoreline, the sandy stretch of Pikes Beach offers essential spawning grounds. While it's great that Pikes Beach is able to offer preferred spawning conditions, the high concentration of horseshoe crabs the site supports during mating season has made it quite easy for baymen to harvest this species. The taking of horseshoe crabs during their spawn can be detrimental to the overall health of the population, so it was becoming clear that a better balance needed to be struck to both ensure future generations of horseshoe crabs can continue to survive, while allowing for those who make a living on the water to continue to do so.
The trustees manage 26,000 acres of bay bottom, and we're only talking, maybe 2,000 feet of beach. So it's a big bay. There's a lot of areas where they can still harvest. They harvest these crabs for conch bait. This
was revelatory for us. I mean, we were kind of like shocked, and that's what has progressed over the next couple of years. So when I read Matt's report, I said, well, we got to do something about this. I mean, it just is too important not to know.
Well, thanks to Gina, she came to our meeting and she presented a lot of information. She's been working with our person in the office that is our environmental analyst. She came up with the dates and one of the best dates are. And we passed a resolution closing them on 4-day periods. And it basically goes from Cove Road to the point of the spit, and then back out to the edge of the village. Okay. So it's delineated. It's GPS. There'll be buoys set up at some point, and that's how we manage it.
But as soon as they did this regulation, just in the nights that we've been here, boom, the count's back. Now, not to the levels that we saw in 2008, but at least we're coming down here and we're seeing horseshoe crabs. It's really great. I think the citizen scientists, people being emotionally moved by this, they're not only helpful in the tagging, but they're helpful in getting people to care about the preservation of life in the bay.
What a great example of the importance of citizen science. Keep up the good work, Gina and Mark, and all of our Monitoring Network volunteers. If you want to get involved, check out NewYorkHorseshoeCrab.org. While helping ensure wild populations of our marine species are thriving is important, helping reestablish species in decline is also key to a healthy marine environment. In our next story, we'll learn about how aquaculture is an important industry to both the health of our bays and the health of our local economy.
My name is Greg Rivara. I'm the aquaculture specialist for Cornell Cooperative Extension of Suffolk County. I was hired in 1986 to work primarily with commercial shellfish growers in Suffolk County, and also the 10 towns in Suffolk, all 10 of which have shellfish resource enhancement projects where they plant seed. They either have their own hatchery or they buy from a hatchery and maybe nurse it in a nursery system. My job was to help them get started and also to help the existing shellfish farmers, which were there maybe a few dozen at the time, maybe not even that many, solve problems, expand maybe. They might have had an oyster disease episode, and I went and worked with them, sent the samples to the appropriate folks, and basically helped them solve problems and make more money. That's what Cornell Extension does statewide, really.
Rosalie, this is Ian Weil. We have Little Creek Oysters in Greenport and an oyster farm in Peconic Bay.
Going back to even before the farm started, when we first took a look, they give you a whole map of the whole bay with 600 little boxes, and you're supposed to pick 3 that are going to make the greatest oysters you could possibly make. And so not really understanding some of the science, some of the working challenges of different parts of the bay, you know, it was an incredible resource for me to be able to call up Cornell Cooperative Extension. And I remember throwing a map in front of Greg Rivera and saying, okay, give me a couple of areas, you know, or at least help me pin it down. And obviously there's no right and wrong spot, but there are spots that were maybe more right for me or more right for what we wanted to do and the gear we wanted to use in this kind of bigger picture. So from that first day where we highlighted a short list, down to, you know, 1 week ago asking for information on, now that we're in more advanced stage, we're trying a new technique now that, or new to us anyway, that is meant to enhance the quality of our shells and the health of the oysters, all of which we get by going back to the aquaculture specialists. So throughout the process, it's been a regular phone call and email chain for sure.
I think, you know, aquaculture and growing oysters as well as other kinds of shellfish and marine life, it gives back to the water. It helps to filter the water, helps keep it clean, helps ideally repopulate the bays and help make them more vibrant. You know, oysters, in addition to clams and other shellfish, are just really wonderful filterers. So they can kind of continue to do their job, be wonderful to eat, and keep the waters clean at the same time. It's a very win-win sort of operation.
Okay, so there's the actual component, which is that these things we're putting in the water are good for the environment, but some of it is also, I think, changing, you know, an awareness level and behavior level on a general citizen. So if we're in the press or we're in a write-up from a food source standpoint, we hope anyway that people are more mindful about how they're behaving on the water and what they do, and that also then they maybe join some community organizations like SPAT, for example, which is a way to, not as a non-commercial entity, to actually have hands-on, you know, make hands-on change to the environment itself.
How many people here have never grown oysters before here?
Kim Tetro has been teaching people how to grow oysters since the year 2000. He heads up Cornell Cooperative Extension's Suffolk Project in Aquaculture Training, or SPAT, and encourages community members to become stewards of their environment and help restore local shellfish populations. As part of the program, CCE helps members obtain the necessary permits from New York State DEC to grow shellfish either at their own dock or at one of several community gardens. Kim continually welcomes members of all ages, backgrounds, and ability levels into the SPAT family.
SPAT, for people that discover SPAT program, know that they can put their whatever expertise they have to real work, have ownership in the program, have a level of professionalism and also pride and respect. And you know, I'm sure there are other things that you can do in life. I'm not of the age yet to know what I'm going to do when I retire, but I look at what has happened here with our group, and it should be, without question, a part of our society that includes the elderly, includes anybody that wants to give some of their time back to the marine environment.
I saw something in the paper about the SPAT program, and I thought this would be something I'd really like to I would be interested in. I wanted to do something for the environment, and I wanted to do something that makes me happy, and I have a passion for, and I have a passion for this. And it's very rewarding, giving back to the Bay. And there's a core group of, what would you say, 15 to 20, sure. 15 to 20 people. We have a core group that show up Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Our membership is about 250 families now. We have annexes of community gardens on Tiana Beach in West Hampton Beach, in Sag Harbor Oyster Club. We have numerous people growing oysters here at the Marine Center. It's been a wonderful run.
It has been a wonderful run, Kim. If you want to grow your own shellfish with Kim and Janice and the SPAT community, give us a call and we'll get you started in Hampton Bays here at the Tiana Bayside facility or at one of our other 5 community garden sites. As you can see, our aquaculture specialists are committed to helping Suffolk County residents get involved with growing shellfish, either recreationally with SPAT or commercially like Ian and Rosalie. They sure do have a great thing going with Little Creek oysters. Check them out next time you're in Greenport. Next up, we're going to check in with our fisheries team and learn about an important project that has helped remove tons of marine debris from our waters and saved an incredible amount of fish from being lost to ghost fishing.
The catastrophic Long Island Sound lobster die-off, which occurred in 1998 and 1999, severely impacted the Long Island Sound waters and resulted in a dramatic drop in American lobster abundance and landings. This event negatively impacted the marine environment and affected the Long Island Sound fishing industry and coastal communities, socially and economically. Due to this decline in lobster catch and the absence of an organized disposal and storage program, the retrieval of gear was deemed economically unfeasible by lobstermen, and their traps were intentionally abandoned. The prohibitive cost of land storage near the Long Island coast, coupled with the increased cost of transporting these traps to temporary or permanent storage elsewhere, has encouraged universal trap abandonment and compounded the improper storage of surplus traps at sea. Lobster trap deployment in 1999, at the peak of the Long Island Sound lobster fishery, prior to the collapse, was approximately 466,530 traps for Connecticut and New York. Trap deployment has dropped significantly, and mass trap abandonment began to occur after 2006 from resulting attrition of commercial lobstermen. The immediate threat to the marine environment as a result of this practice is ghost fishing of derelict traps.
Ghost fishing is when species, lobster, sea bass, or any type of species are trapped in these traps because there's no way for them to get out. And in the long run, if they weren't removed from the traps, they would die.
Derelict traps can self-bait and double their catch rate. Derelict lobster gear damages sensitive habitats and continually captures important species, leading to reduced population fitness and significant mortalities.
The trap keeps fishing continuously until the vent breaks free, but a lot of these traps, the vents did not break free, so it will just continue to ghost fish on the bottom of the Long Island Sound.
The unfortunate consequence is that these abandoned ghost traps in the Long Island Sound represent real mortality potential for lobsters and other economically important species. To date, Cornell Marine Program staff, along with active lobstermen, removed 16,610 derelict lobster traps, weighing 830,500 pounds.
I would say that was the most important part of the project, is everybody coming together, all our partners, the Long Island Sound Commercial Fishermen's Association. They worked with us every day. If it wasn't for them, the project wouldn't be successful, along with the entire community coming together, all the different towns, town of Brookhaven, village of Northport, working with us. They would come and crush the pots for us. We could use their facilities, and I think overall, the community coming together as one made the project very successful.
The results of this project indicates that there is still more to be done, given the estimated number of derelict lobster traps in the Long Island Sound to date. Areas of derelict lobster traps are yet to be discovered, although a significant number have been retrieved. Potential impacts of critical species are still occurring.
I feel good about the number of traps that we removed from the Sound, and hopefully we prevented these economically important species from being trapped again.
Our fisheries team works long hours side by side with commercial fishermen to help make this industry viable and sustainable so it could remain part of our maritime heritage for years to come. We're here at the Shinnecock Commercial Fishing Docks in Hampton Bays, and across the bay is the Shinnecock Indian Reservation, where we'll head for our last story.
The project came to be as a result from the devastation from Hurricane Sandy of 2012. The East Coast received heavy damage from Hurricane Sandy, as far as from North Carolina all the way up the coast, with Long Island receiving some of the heaviest damage, and our reservation received extensive damage. So from there, members of our tribe, our council, applied for the grant and received $3.75 million. The funding was made available through the Department of Interior and was administered through the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation.
It all started, I think it was in 2014, when we heard the tribe wanted to apply for a grant through National Fish and Wildlife Foundation. And what we did was contact them and offer our assistance. And fortunate for us, they said, sure, help us out. So what we did was we met with a tribal administrator, a tribal council member, started to work on some scoping concepts for the overall project. They had a plan in mind, and we helped to kind of put some science to that. When we first looked at the site prior to the project, it was in pretty bad shape. I hadn't been there in many years because we don't often go to the reservation, but we were invited in to take a look at it, and it was in need of some restoration for sure. So much of the beach was washed away. The trees were eroding off of the shoreline, so what had been a beach was now this kind of rocky, cobbly area. And it was threatening to take away much of the reservation's real estate. It was being lost to these, storms, one after the other. In terms of an overall plan or vision, it really came from the tribe. So I came to the site as a biologist, and also thinking in terms of what we can do within the typical regulations, but as a sovereign tribe, they can kind of do what they want. So that was kind of refreshing.
Chris Pickrell had contacted me in my office, knowing that we work with dredging and we're responsible for safe navigation of maintaining channels throughout Suffolk County, and basically inquired, do you know if you're going to have any projects within the area proximate to the Shinnecock Nation that we're planning on doing this great restoration, shoreline restoration project. We had Shinnecock Inlet East Cut came up as far as a priority for the town of Southampton, and so I gave Chris a call back and said, this is something we could entertain, and this very well may make your project work.
That was really key to getting the project started on the ground. Without that sand, we wouldn't have a project. They began their dredging during the normal dredging window, and we received over 30,000 cubic yards of sand that went along the entire 3,000 feet of the shoreline, starting at the north end and moving south. And then with that, we had anywhere from, say, 75 to 150 feet of new beach out into the bay, what was open water, so it's pretty exciting. After that, We looked at installing beach snow fences, or sand fences in this case, which you see along the ocean beaches. So we installed multiple rows of those to trap and hold that sand in place so it wouldn't blow away over the winter of 2015, 2016. And then later on in the winter into the very early spring, we planted beach grass. So many thousand shoots of beach grass that were propagated from plants on the reservation as well as from around Shinnecock Bay. So we used local native stock for that work. We then coordinated the effort to put in a line of rocks or boulders at the mean sea level elevation. So the great thing about this project is it's one of the only living shoreline projects that I know of, or maybe the only living shoreline. So not only is it of a scale that's unheard of around here, but it's also of a type and a complexity that we haven't been able to achieve in the past technique. So it's a combination of bringing in sand, armoring that with rocks to a certain extent, and then in combination with plant materials. So the rocks by themselves won't stabilize the shore, but you need the rocks and the plants together to kind of get that job done.
Okay, first of all, because of the project being done, it's created a lot of jobs for people on the reservation. For example, my son Eric Phillips, who is the field manager of the project, has worked with a lot of younger men, and it's given them a respect for the land and the water.
Working with the tribal members has been really exciting. So we're working with people that have a sense of place and pride in the land. It's great to see people working on their own property within their own nation and taking an interest in their cultural history, the natural resources that their tribe has lived within for many, many decades, if not centuries. So that's pretty exciting. So.
It's also been rewarding working with Cornell Cooperative Extension, Chris Pickerel, Stephen Schott, Greg Rivara, Kim Tetrault. You guys are the masters of restoration. We appreciate you.
It's been a hugely rewarding experience getting to be involved with the Shinnecock Coastal Habitat Restoration Project. Just look at how great the shoreline is looking. We'll keep bringing you updates on this project in future episodes, but that's all for this show. If you'd like to learn more about the Marine Program or any of the projects featured in this episode, visit our website or find our new On the Water and In the Field print magazine at participating distributors across Suffolk County. Thanks for watching, and see you next time on the water and in the field.